Hi, and welcome to the Science of the Good Life. I'm Louisa Jewell, and I'm here with Kristin Neff, who is a top researcher in the area of self-compassion. Welcome, Kristin.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here. I think that the work you're doing is so interesting and so important for everybody, especially for women who seem to be really hard on themselves. And so I'm really delighted that you're here to share some of the work that you're doing in this area and some of the knowledge that you have with regards to how we can build our self-confidence using self-compassion.
Yeah.
Now, our society focuses on the importance of building self-esteem. But according to your latest research, self-esteem building can be problematic. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Now, it's not that there's any problem with having self-esteem. It's certainly better for us to think well of ourselves, to like ourselves, than to hate ourselves. Absolutely. That leads to all sorts of psychological health problems. The real issue is how do we get our high self-esteem, right? There are healthy and unhealthy ways of getting it. And here, just to be clear, I'm defining self-esteem as a positive evaluation of self-worth. It's really a judgment that I am a good person versus a bad person. Okay? And typically the way people get their self-esteem is through a process of social comparison, being special and above average, right? Everyone has to feel special and above average to feel okay about themselves, which is a logical impossibility. So really from baseline, if we need to feel above average to feel okay about ourselves, we're automatically setting ourselves up to lose, really, because it's an unwinnable game. There will always be someone who's doing it better than us. It also tends to be contingent on success. For women, appearance is a huge domain of success. It could be business, it could be performance, it could be how popular you are, how much people like you. But again, when it's contingent, that means self-esteem is really a fair weather friend. You know, it's there for you when times are good, when times are bad, when you fail, you make a mistake, or you get rejected, then your self-esteem deserts you, and that's precisely when you need it most. So my argument or my idea is that self-compassion is also a way of feeling good about ourselves, but it's not a matter of judgment or evaluation at all. It's really a way of relating to ourselves with kindness, care, concern, support, just like we'd treat a good friend. And that way it's not contingent on failure or success. It's not contingent on being anything other than a flawed, struggling, imperfect human being, which most of us can manage.
That's right. Well, that's great. Now, I've been practicing self-compassion for many years now, and I can't help but think that there's a link between self-compassion and self-confidence. In your research, in what you're learning about self-compassion, how can we improve our self-confidence by being more self-compassionate?
Yeah, so the research, several different studies support that link, that more self-compassionate people have greater perceived confidence. Even if you either measure self-compassion as a trait or you teach people to be more self-compassionate, one of the benefits is greater perceived confidence or self-efficacy. And there's a few reasons why that is. First of all, think about it. When you criticize yourself constantly, when you cut yourself down, when you say things to yourself like, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, I'll never amount to anything, we are pulling the rug out from underneath ourselves. We are giving ourselves a message, sometimes constantly, that we aren't good enough, we aren't a success, that we're a failure, and that actually starts impacting our beliefs and our ability to do well. And the other thing that's really detrimental about that is if you know that you try and you fail, that you will beat yourself up, if that's the habitual pattern, you beat yourself up when you fail, you're going to stop trying. You can become afraid of trying because the risks are too high.
Right.
So what we found with self-compassionate people, and again, this has been shown in a variety of, using a variety of methodologies, that when you fail, because you treat yourself kindly and with compassion, and you treat yourself like a human being who's trying the best they can, you become less afraid of failure, right? And we know that failure is our absolutely best teacher. We learn the most from failure. So when it's safe to fail, it's safe to try. So for instance, people who are self-compassionate, not only are they kind to themselves when they fail, but they're much more likely to keep trying after they fail to persist, and then to try again. If they can't reach their goal, they're more likely to try a new goal and to work in that new direction.
Right.
So it's very, very beneficial for self-confidence and motivation.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you're almost creating kind of a nice cushion for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about, let's say a coach, let's say you had an athletic coach, you're on the basketball team, and your coach, could either be one of two ways. One is, you loser, that was crap, I hated what you did, Or your coach could be, even if it's something like, well, boy, you did lose that game and there's these things we need to work on, but I believe in you, I'm here for you, I'll support you. If your coach is encouraging and gives you constructive criticism as opposed to harsh judgment, it's absolutely something you can rely on. Or like a good friend, right? And real self-compassion is like having this good friend within ourselves all the time, to be there when we need it, to give ourselves emotional support when we need it. And it's really invaluable to have that coping resource. And again, research shows self-compassion is hugely important for coping. Anything from AIDS to cancer to divorce to post-traumatic stress syndrome. Combat veterans with self-compassion do better. So it's a really important source of resilience.
Absolutely. Now, so I know you have a 3-step kind of process on how to be more self-compassionate. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, well, it's not so much a 3-step process as it is pointing out the 3 essential elements of self-compassion. So in other words, we do need to cultivate all 3 in order to be fully self-compassionate, at least from my point of view. So those 3 are, the first is being kind to yourself rather than harshly judgmental. Kind of what I've been talking about, treating yourself like you treat a good friend, speaking to yourself, using the words and the tone, very important, the tone, that you would use for a very good friend you cared about. The second is realizing this sense of common humanity. Oftentimes what happens when we fail or something is difficult in our lives, we feel like this shouldn't be happening. It's very unconscious, it's not rational, but as if baseline is everything is going perfectly. And when something goes wrong or troubles occur or I fail, this is abnormal. And that sense of abnormality, if you think about it, creates a real sense of isolation, as if everyone else in the world is living normal, perfect lives, and it's just me who's leading my abnormal, imperfect life, right? Again, it's not rational, but emotionally it's very powerful. So when you remember that failure, struggles, challenges, pain, this is the shared human condition. This is part of life for everyone. Then at least when we go through hard times, we don't feel so alone. We don't feel so disconnected from others, which again is very important, to feel connected rather than disconnected from others. And then the last part of self-compassion is mindfulness. There's been a lot of work now on mindfulness. A lot of people are really realizing the benefits of mindfulness through research, through training. And mindfulness is one of the core components of self-compassion. So mindfulness really refers to the ability to be present with what is, even if what is painful or unwanted, unpleasant. And of course, most of us are that way with our pain, aren't we? We don't want to face it, or we want to fight it. We want it not to be so, and we get really reactive and frustrated. But if we're mindful of our suffering, and I'm using that word suffering as a big word, but it could just mean, I'm irritated, or I made a little mistake, or it could be huge, like I get some diagnosis, anything in between. When we're mindful of that moment and we're able to turn toward it, not hide, not run away, not resist, and be with it, then that allows us to open our hearts to ourselves and hold ourselves in compassion in the midst of that difficult experience. It's funny, a lot of people aren't even aware of how much they're suffering, especially when their suffering comes from their own self-criticism. Some people I've talked to, they've said, I've had this voice in my head for as long as I can remember. I didn't even know what it would feel like not to have this voice, telling me all the time how bad I am or how inadequate I am. So when you're aware of the suffering that you're experiencing, then you can, open your heart to yourself. So those are really the three main components, or you might say steps, of self-compassion.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that information with us. And thank you so much for sharing the three elements of self-compassion. I'm sure that's going to be very helpful for our viewers. And I'm going to be posting links to your website and to your book and other wonderful resources that you have. And I really look forward to meeting you. And thanks again, Kristin, for everything.
Oh, thanks so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.